Right. Welcome to Mothering in a Pandemic. I'm Stevie Carr, founder and CEO of Wise. I'm really appreciative for all of you being here. We're going to allow for people to kind of roll in and leave as they need to as we're getting started, but to be respectful of the speakers' times, I thought that we would just go ahead and dive right in. How this all came about was we started to recognize even pre-COVID-19 that mothering is a really incredibly challenging, rewarding, devastating, exciting experience, right? And nobody really tells us a lot about what mothering is like. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that as I came in to establish what Wise looks like. And I think it's because it is such a personal experience. If somebody had told me, what to expect, they would have been wrong, because the way that I experience everything is going to be very different than other people's experiences. And I think that as we move into this experience that we are in right now amidst COVID, I think that what we need more than ever is to come together as a community and start to have the discussions about what our version of success looks like and what our version of failure looks like, and how we are going to start to lean on each other for support and guidance and permission to place ourselves first. Because if we do not support ourselves, we cannot support all of the communities around us. And I'm just so grateful for Whitney Ellison of Wellison Enterprises and of Ashley Solomon of Galia Collaborative. These two women have really been leading the conversation and charge in our community about what their experience has been in starting to elevate the conversation, the important conversation that we need to start having about what are we going to do? Because for us, backsliding in progress as women is not an option, and we will never not take care of our communities and families. It's never going to be an option for us. So we need to start thinking differently and acting differently in order to be able to avoid burnout and to thrive and feel fulfillment, because it's really, one thing is certain is there's no certainty. I think if COVID in 2020 has really taught us anything, and there's a silver lining in all of this, is it's allowing for us to dismantle our previous beliefs of what we thought that we were supposed to do. And I could not be more excited that each and every one of you is taking the evening to spend with us and to be a part of this incredible conversation. So just a few rules of the road tonight. You're going to hear from 4 incredible panelists from across the country, moderated by Whitney. We ask that you stay on mute, but if you do have a question, please come into the chat or raise your hand. We would love to see your faces. We would love the opportunity for you to be able to express yourself and ask a question yourself, but we want to be respectful of the way and the flow of this roundtable. That takes me to the second part of this, is the roundtable, is that this is not going to be your traditional panel. This is very much women getting around a table and talking. And we're going to talk about a lot of uncomfortable things tonight that I hope really helps you to feel seen and enables you to be able to bring your whole self forward and maybe ask yourselves the same questions. Lastly, I would say that after this, we fully intend to continue this as a series. We know that we won't get to all of the topics that we want to tonight. There's a lot that we want to cover. We are in an election year. Black Lives Matter. There's a lot going on with schooling, and what are people doing right now? With I know I'm homeschooling right now, and I'm like, I didn't sign up for that, but here we are. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of things that we'll talk about. So tonight is just intended to be the first of many conversations in building this community of incredible women that we know can really make a difference. And so I just wanted to thank you all again, taking the time for yourselves. make sure that if you want to be on video, that's great. If you don't want to be on video, that's great. If you want to, I was telling the group before, if you want to like go into your closet, your bathroom, and like close the door and grab a glass of wine, perfect. This is time for you to just think about how you're really going to invest in yourself. So I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce Whitney. Whitney is a very good, dear friend of mine. She's a founding member of Wise Wellness Guild, and is just honestly one of the people in my life that has shown me the possibility when you just make a decision and lean in. And I think that that's the piece of what makes her so incredible as a leader in this community, is that she is making the decision to be a voice of our community, not only for moms, but for so many other groups that really need the platform to be able to advance themselves. And so as she's leaning into transformation in her own life, I could not be more honored that she has taken the time to lead this incredible conversation, that she has made the decision that she's going to stand up for us as women, and that she's leaning in on making change for everyone. So Whitney, thank you so much for joining us this evening and agreeing to moderate this roundtable. Could not be more grateful.
Thank you, Stevie, and thanks for the introduction. It is my absolute pleasure and privilege to be a part of this project, and just so much fun. The event's going to be amazing tonight. Welcome to everybody that signed up to attend, and of course, welcome to our awesome panelists. I can't wait to get started. My name is Whitney Ellison. I am the founder and CEO of Wellison Enterprises. It's strategic advising. I also do Enneagram guidance, and I have 3 kids, almost 8-year-olds, a 6-year-old that's just turned 6, and a baby that was a surprise that's 10 and a half months old and just started walking and might be screaming in the background. And then I also have a day job, and just trying to float along in the days of COVID. So with that being said, I'm here tonight because I care deeply about what's happening to women. And we need to be having the conversations, acknowledging this, and then finding ways to work with our partners to hold, to hold them accountable, to hold companies accountable, to hold our peers accountable for making sure that women in families and just women in general are getting the support that they need. And I know people want to help, but they don't know how. So tonight we're getting the conversation started. We have an amazing, amazing panel of women and moms. Dr. Ashley Solomon, Jessi Way, who happens to also be my sister, which explains the same side hair wave, Alisa Culyer, and Lindsay Simmons. Welcome, ladies. And what I'd love to do before we get started is if you could just briefly introduce yourself, what you're up to day to day, and why you decided to participate on this panel. And I'd love to start with you, Lindsay, first, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Lindsay. I am a museum professional, but also a mother of 1. My beautiful daughter, Wren, is one of the most kindest, generous souls on earth. She's my little fairy. Everything is mermaids, fairies, and superheroes in life. It does make doing the homeschool a little challenging to keep her on task. But yeah, I'm here. I want to just second Whitney. I'm here because I'm just seeing so many people around me, especially my women friends, just really struggling and not knowing where to turn when it comes to being able to balance and figure out everything with the challenges that COVID has brought. Besides the challenges already that we face, it just seems extra impounded. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And Alisa, we'll go with you next, please.
Hello, I am Alisa Culyer, and I am a mother of 2, Stella and Sierra. Stella is 9 and Sierra is 7. I am an interior decorator and do renovations and staging, which I absolutely love. And it's hard to say when you can wake up in the morning that you can't think about your job in a negative way. I love it. I just wake up and I'm happy to do what I can do to help everybody and anybody within wanting to do design or recreate their home. I'm here because I do think it's really important during this time for women to feel okay and to let it loose, and it's okay to excuse my French, lose your shit, because it's crazy. So I'm here because I'm the one that is, I don't hide her, behind the bush. I'm pretty much put it out there, say what I need to say. And I think there's a lot of women out there that have that same feeling and they feel like they can't. So I'm here to show you that you can.
Love it. Thank you. And Jessi, how about you?
Hi, I'm Jessi. I have 3 kids, 10 months, 3.5. I introduced her as a 2.5-year-old the other day, and my husband, of all people, corrected me on that, and a 6.5-year-old. And I stay home with my babies. I wanted to join this panel because, it's a nice community to have, to know that we all have our different frustrations with the impact of COVID, and we can rely on each other in our sisterhood and lean into one another to share that we're not alone. We have ideas to help, and if we don't, we'll come to something to help each other out.
Thanks, Jess. And Ashley, last but not least.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. So I am Ashley Solomon. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I own an organization called Galia Collaborative. What we do is we focus on elevating the impact of women through enhancing their mental wellness and well-being. And so we do that with individuals and organizations, and there are so many reasons I'm excited to be here tonight and part of this conversation. I think on a personal level, in my own life, and the people that I'm, my friends that I'm surrounded with, and certainly in my clients, there is just so much burnout. And that was something I focused on long before COVID, and seeing the impact of that on kind of our ability to really fully participate in the parts of our lives that are important to us has been really devastating. So I'm so grateful to learn from the other women here tonight, and I think it'll be a great convo.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for introducing yourselves. I just want to share before we get started on this dialogue, we tried to get a broad scope of representation, and you'll see that here. However, we couldn't encompass everybody in 4 spots. So, that just speaks to the series that Stevie wants to have. We want to acknowledge that there are families out there with children with special needs. There are families out there that, and moms out there that may not have the means to even afford to think about childcare. There are all kinds of different moms that, we would love to speak with and have more dialogue with in future sessions. With that being said, I think we've got some great representation tonight in terms of the different parts of motherhood. So, and then one more that down the road we would like to have is mothers with children that are a bit older. The majority of us on the panel do have children that are fairly younger. So with that being said, I think that we've got a great representation here to have an awesome dialogue tonight. And I'm going to kick off the dialogue with a very simple yet very broad, provoking question. And that is, how are you? Who would like to go first?
Are you asking how I was an hour ago or how I'm doing now? Because it's a toss-up. Some days I wake up and I'm like, it's a brand new day. Who's talking about Groundhog Day again? I'm going to take these.
I don't know if I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Good? Okay.
Okay. So, I wake up and I'm thinking, it's not Groundhog Day. Keep hearing that over and over again. I'm going to take the kids for a walk. We're going to do something fun. We're going to picnic at the park. And then 15 minutes into it, I'm like, what in the hell was I thinking? It is Groundhog Day. My kids are losing their cool because we picnic at the park every day because I can't haul 3 kids to a public place. And then other times, it's like, all right, we're having a really good day. Things are going really well. And a lot of times, it'll take one thing to trigger everything just kind of going down. And sometimes it's one thing to, bring things up.
Wow. I think that's the piece of this that you really do kind of feel like you're trying, right? And think about that emotional lift of all of that, of like really wanting to do something different and engage in a new and different way. And then you're just like, it's pretty exhausting. I don't know if any of you guys, how's everybody else doing? How are you feeling?
I just want to say, Jessi, I totally relate to the idea that you like have these grand visions in your mind, and then they never seem to, if they involve children, they never go in the way that you envisioned. So I second a lot of that over these last few months. I remember when there was almost something kind of romanticized in my head about when schools went remote in the spring, and thinking, you know, this could be so beautiful, and we're going to come together, and we're going to sort of overcome and, you know, do all this lovely reading together as a family. And that lasted about, you know, negative 30 seconds. So I guess I've been doing, I always get like paralyzed by that question, because I'm like, how am I doing? I don't know. Mostly fine. I think I've been, I think in some ways I've actually been pretty good, and that feels weird to say at times lately too. I feel like my introverted self is enjoying the lack of socialization pressures, and I'm definitely getting more family time, and, you know, my kind of professional life has been going pretty well. So I guess I just want to own that overall, I actually feel like there's some real gifts, and I'm not just saying that to like blow steam or, you know, make things sound rosy, but just to try to find some joy in this time. So
I would say I'm probably the mom, which most of my very closest friends know, I'm trying to get my children away from me. And so when it's asked, how are you doing? Because they are on top of you. Surprisingly, I actually enjoyed the beginning of this where everyone was home. I told my husband it's good that we like each other, and now I think that we do love each other, because we can withstand this and we have to be together all the time. So you know, this has been good. I think it's, you know, it can be good or bad. However you want to look at it, you know, it could show you the areas that you need to improve. It could show the areas where you're like, wow, I really am doing a great job about that, or I do have a really great relationship. It showed me how to reconnect with my kids and my husband. But I think I'm doing pretty well. And now that we've opened up our circle of back to our friends again, it's even better, because we get to see them. But now I'm ready for my kids to go. Like, you need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And my husband, they all need to go.
Yeah. So I dropped off for a second. My phone naturally decided to lose the call. Lindsay, did you get a chance to answer that?
No, I think mine is, I have to say, like, I feel like overall, there have been moments where I absolutely have cried in the shower. I mean, like, I have just taken that emotion and let loose because days were just overwhelming, or, you know, finding childcare just seemed like something that was like a dream that would never be attained. And so I've had those moments, but I also have taken moments to like kind of check in on myself, ask that question that you asked. And doing that in little moments, I found that overall, most of the moments have been positive, or most of the days have been positive, and finding these little things that have been really great interactions with my daughter. Just like getting things done on my own that just kind of like blew me away. Like that I actually moved during this time, and I did that as a single mom, and I effing rocked it. Like, I was just so proud. I got everything together, packed up those boxes. I got here, and like I had to like just be like, dude, we got this. We totally got this. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at, where a lot of people are. So yeah.
Well, good. And if I may answer my own question, I'm good, but I feel like my pants are on fire all the time. You know, I'm just like every direction, pulled in every direction, wanting to make things happen, and then like running through cement, right? So, you know, it's a mix of all the things, but I think that COVID's the great equalizer next to death. You know, we all could get it. We all got, you know, quarantined the same way that our neighbors did, and it really doesn't discriminate as to who it affects. So the experience is collective, that's for sure. So thank you all for answering that and answering it honestly. And Jessi, I'm sorry that it dropped off in the middle of your answer. I hope it didn't disrupt you too much. So speaking of apologies, let's talk about guilt. How, you know, guilt seems to be present in most mothers, and I would even venture to say in most women. You know, we're pretty hard on ourselves sometimes. So I want to know, do you struggle with guilt? And if you do, how you release it? And if you don't, give some words of wisdom about helping other women release it. And Ashley, why don't you take this one off?
Sure. I realized too that I never mentioned who my kids are, so don't tell them that. But so I have four children, 7, 5, 3, and 10 months. So we have a 10-month club here going amongst us. But so those are my kids, and I also live with my husband. Yeah. So one of the things that I learned a while back about guilt, kind of in my therapy training, is that there's such thing as healthy and sort of valid guilt, and there's unhealthy and invalid guilt. And learning to differentiate the two has been really helpful for me. So like what I've learned for myself is that often what I kind of perceive as guilt, like mom guilt in particular, actually I have my own therapist who kind of helped reframe this for me at one point, has oftentimes isn't so much guilt on the part of like my kids because they're, you know, missing out on more time with me, or, you know, my employees because they need more of me, but more so like just a sadness in myself that like I want to be with them, or I want to be present for this thing that I can't. So for me, when I like can reframe the idea of like I feel guilty for not being there, to just acknowledging like I feel sad to not be able to be there, to be everywhere, like there's inherent grief in not being able to be 45 people. So we naturally are missing things. I feel like that's been easier for me to be able to cope with as an emotion, versus that I need to be there for them. Because I think I've come to terms at this point in my parenting journey, and like professional parenting, you know, / parenting journey, that I know I feel pretty solid in why I work and why I've made the decisions that I've made. So I've stopped questioning those things. And now it's just sort of allowing for the sadness that I can't be everything to everyone. So that's been part of my like way of sort of processing what it means to have like mom guilt, at least in the last few years.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I'm selfish.
Say more.
You are just a little bit.
I am selfish.
No.
It's okay to be selfish.
It's
Okay?
good.
It's okay to be selfish.
I mean, I think the times I felt guilty were when they were young, and I wasn't connecting. I'll be honest, I didn't love children for 6 months. I was like, I want them, but I just didn't love the whole idea. I hated being pregnant. So, you know, I felt guilty with all that stuff. You know, I love working. I love succeeding. I love being the powerhouse. So, you know, I wasn't feeling guilty by going back to work. I mean, I left my first child after 6 weeks. I was like, I can't stay with you. Like, I can't. It won't be good for you or me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, now recently I can feel guilty here and there because my kids, they're old enough they know how to get to me. So that's where the guilt comes from, where they're like, Mom, you're always busy. Mom, you have to work. They know what to say and what to do. They're smart. And, you know, and I try to throw it back in their face, like, well, if I didn't do this, this, and this, we can have this, this, and that. Or, you know, I try to explain to them why I'm doing what I'm doing so that they don't want to guilt me and I don't feel guilty for what I do, because I do enjoy my life. I enjoy what I do. And, you know, I don't think it's bad to be selfish. You know, I think women in general, before you had a husband or an ex or whatever, or the children, you were yourself, by yourself. You made yourself happy. And I think you have to remember that you should still be number one in any of this, so that you do not feel guilty. And it's the same thing in whatever type of relationship you're in, that still becomes another number one spot before your children or whatever, because those are the things that make you happy, and you add on these additional pieces to complement the main happiness. So I am selfish. I do enjoy it. But I do surprise my kids and do fun things, and it's the unexpected that they look forward from me, and that makes me feel good. So I think being selfish is good, and not feeling guilty, because this job is not easy.
I 100% relate to you, Alisa, and I just want to affirm what you said. And it's not easy to say those things to a lot of people, and I feel very similarly. And so thank you for sharing that.
I just wanted to say that I think showing, I'm not going to like debate what is the right amount of selfishness, but I think that showing selfishness is kind of in good amounts is setting a good example also too for our children, that we're taking care of ourselves and that we are prioritizing ourselves. Because I think when you're a mom, I've had moments during this time where my daughter, she's just like every beck and call, and I'm like, okay, like there are moments like I need my space, you need your space, and that's okay. Like I know we've had this closeness for a while. There's times I'm actually starting to go back into the office, and we've had the kind of the tears that about wanting me to stay home with her. So it brings up the ability to have the conversation. Well, I do this. I love my job. It gives me, good feels. I feel good purpose. I'm doing something that is making the world a better place. I make money so that we can like feed ourselves and have a roof. And so I think that those conversations and those moments are really important. If we don't have that, we're not setting a really good example of taking care of ourselves. And I also just want to say one more thing, like generally for me, anytime I kind of start to feel guilt, I actually try and tell myself it's not worth my time. So I generally, if I know I'm doing the best I can and I'm just like really just at my best and capacity, I don't have time for guilt. Like otherwise, you just put yourself in
Amen.
a place that sadness that comes out of that, you can process through it. There's times when it's totally appropriate, but I just have to be like, not going there. So.
Great, thank you. And how about you, Jess?
Well, as far as guilt, I don't know, this made me had a couple different thoughts, so I'm afraid I'll go off in a direction here. But as far as guilt during COVID goes, it's been just me and the 3 kids. My husband's been very tied up with work at a retirement community, so you can imagine he's pretty much non-existent. So some days my oldest will look at me and say, "Mommy, we didn't go anywhere today." Because usually I get the kids out of the house at least once a day. It's for my sanity, it's for their sanity. And right now we're going to the playground to picnic. Like that's the only material I have. So as far as guilt goes, I feel like I am, I feel like they're sheltered at the moment. We can't really get out and do anything. And it makes me feel guilty because that's not the kind of parent I am. I want them to get out and experience things. At the same time, it's forced them to be more creative within the house. I do see both of my daughters using their imaginations more, and they're playing together. Of course, they're fighting more because they're together more, but they're starting to do things. And like my oldest child, she's starting to read better. I let her stay up at night now. She puts her lamp on, falls asleep with a book in her hand, and it melts my heart. But as far as, kind of tapping into what y'all were saying about, you want to go to work, that's where you thrive, you want to be at work and you can manage that balance. I think I could manage that balance, but I felt guilty and like I hadn't done my part when a few months ago, I was talking to a friend on the phone or something. I said, oh yeah, well, I stopped working when I had kids. And then my oldest, who's 6.5, butted into the conversation, said, Mommy, you never had a job. You never had a job. And it's like, no, listen up. Mommy's got double major, a minor, and Mommy worked, okay? And it was like, oh my God, I have failed you, child. So I went on this whole thing. I bought a miter, a big saw, and I started picking up carpentry. But in a couple of years, you can do this. Mommy can do this. And then I even sent that rehab addict girl from Detroit a message on Instagram. I'm like, no, my daughter can do this. You can pick up a hammer and nail a nail, And so it's kind of a little tangent, but that's how I'm facing guilt at the moment. And right now,
I like that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, and if I may interject, because I may know you a little bit on a personal level, Jessi built the reading nook that her daughter reads in.
Oh, wow.
And put that together for her in front of her. So she witnessed her do that. So I just want to take a moment to
sand it down. Thank you.
Yeah. So, women are pretty amazing. Thank you for all sharing that. And so with that being said, since we have been at home quite a bit with our families that we love so dearly and also want to some days run from so dearly, how are you doing with boundaries in your life? And we can talk about boundaries in the context of with work, friends, with your partnership if you have a spouse, or even with your kids and communicating with them. Whatever speaks to you with boundaries, where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses in managing the COVID times? And you know what, Alisa, I'll start with you on this one.
Okay. There are no boundaries. Not during COVID. Everyone was stuck inside. Let me back it up. You try to place boundaries, and I don't know if I'm answering this correctly, but it's impossible to go to the bathroom. It's impossible to take a shower. There's no boundaries yet, honestly, when they're this young, until they are not really interested in you anymore. So if I had maybe an older child, my 9-year-old's starting to kind of come in and go do her thing and not care about me. But as far as boundaries, I'm trying to create those, but we're just now getting into the process of creating boundaries as far as, this is my space, this is your space. I don't want to go into your space. I just want you to clean your space, but really stay out of my space, stay out of my bed, out of my room, out of my shower, out of my clothes, out of my jewelry, out of my shoes, stay out of my stuff. So we're just trying to figure that out. Now, my husband, in my relationship, there's, as far as on the bigger scale of boundaries, we don't share bank accounts. I'm very that kind of boundary person. And it sounds a little strange, but I was late to be married, and so I was very much I don't know how this is going to work out. So you keep your stuff, and I'll keep my stuff. I love him. We've been married for 10 years, but that's just who I am. But we are connected, but I keep my boundaries with that. So it's a mix, and it all works. As much as I'm tell my kids to get out, this is my space, I know I'm going to be very sad when it truly does happen, because it will happen, and they will eventually not want to come snuggle in bed with me, not to want to come and watch me shower and talk to me, or it's eventually going to happen, and it will be sad. As much as I'm get out, get out, get out. So I think it's really hard to define those right now, especially if you were trying to set those and then COVID happens and everyone's back in the space, you really have to start all over. And we're probably going to have to start all over months from now, because I don't see an end to this for a while.
I know, I agree. And let me ask you, when you, I know for me, like when I get tired and when my boundaries are pushed, I project anger in my communication, even with my kids. Do you feel like when you're establishing your boundaries with your children, are you able to like gently communicate it, or do you feel like that it's not happening until they're pushing them? And then is it delivered more out of anger? And, you know, what is that like for you?
So I have never been I don't play dolls with my girls. I know that might sound terrible. I'm not one that wants to do crafts. Like, thank God for babysitters for that. I do like to play board games, which I just found out. So when I do, I'm more of a standoffish. So when I get to that point, I'm like, please leave me alone. Stop following me. You know, I've never really been the baby-er type to my children, which is it's a negative. It could be a negative and a positive because I've been a little bit more harsh. I wouldn't say it's anger, it's more stern, and I think that even my husband's a child psychologist, so he's fixing all this.
That helps.
But he's fixing all this. So I mean, he has to remind me, like, you need to be a little bit softer. That delivery was harsh. And I do recognize that. I do recognize I can be harsh. So I will say that's something I need to work on. And then on the flip side, I'm like, I hope that's going to help them in the long run so that they can handle harshness from whatever comes their way. But I'm not yelling. I'm more stern, more like,
Gotcha.
I need time. You know, and when I get to that point, my oldest is like, well, okay, Mom, and she's 9 and she's, you know, going through whatever changes, so it emotionally gets to her a little bit, where my 7-year-old's like, all right, see ya. So.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, for me, my one boundary in my house that I just absolutely enforces my workout stuff in the basement. It's neatly placed, out of the way. Nobody's messing with it, you know. At least I've positioned it to where there should be no reason to mess with it. And like 5 out of 10 times I go down there and something's missing. And I feel like this rage just boil, like my head is going to explode. And I just can't even, I yell, my child comes down because I've asked so many times, leave it alone. You have a bazillion things. This is my tiny space in the house, mine. And so I definitely, that boundary, when that gets crossed over, for whatever reason, it is a trigger for me. And it's not even stern. It's just like a rage space. Find it now. Yeah. And we'll talk about how you're grounded when I'm done exercising. And so, you know, it's hard for me not to just squeeze her head. Like, you feel like there's any of that with you?
Totally. Yes, I do feel like that, and I'm trying to work on that. But I'll tell you, I've bought a few books since COVID started. One being The Child Whisperer, and another one being How to Buy Friday. Because my oldest, she really knows it. And maybe I should be buying books on, you know, how to be a new mom by Friday, as opposed to changing my kid. Because yes, I go from 0 to 60 when there's that trigger. For example, this evening, of course, my office is this toy room, which I have piles of stuff for this. And then I have to get on the call at 6. That didn't work. My husband's like, okay, great. Walks in the door at 6:15, and I'm like, but I told you I had to be on the call at 6:15. I knew I shouldn't have committed. I can't commit to anything. You know, I had a mini moment. And so yes, I do get angry. I have found, though, because I've had a couple episodes where, I have absolutely lost my shit, and the walls have been shaking. And I'm taking a step back, maybe because of COVID, because I have more time to evaluate my situation. And there's a lot of good things happening for me that I need to recognize. So I actually have been yelling less, I think, also because it's not changing anytime soon. The kids are going to be in the house with me, and I need to be, you know, mindful of my relationship with them and the way they see me and the way I respond. And so I'm just kind of doing the best I can. But, you know, when sometimes those moments come, and the other two, the baby and the 3-year-old, they scramble. But my 6-year-old is she's right there, man. She's standing strong, and she's just finding my buttons and pushing them. I have to give her kudos because she's good at what she does.
Let me just say real quick. Let me just say real quick on like raising the voice and everything like that. I will say, so yes, I have raised my voice and gotten off the charts. But I will say, on any mothers on here, anyone that's, because I've had friends that have asked me, what should I do to calm down, or my anxiety's over here and I don't know how to chill. I'm always yelling. I'm always stressed. I take anxiety medicine, and I think that's something that needs to be put out there. If you think it's something that you need, don't be afraid to ask for it. Because I had to get on it. It took me a really long time, I'll tell you, to say, okay, I have to take something every day to chill the F out. And it's okay. Like, do it if you need it. Talk to someone if you need it. Because it just takes a level off. The screaming is not as bad. The emotions are not as bad. The hiccups aren't as bad. You still are going to have emotion, so it's not going to just make it like a dead fish. But if it's something that you thought about, keep going down that road and go talk to someone about it, because it's not a bad thing. It is not bad to have to take something to take the edge off forever, and it's okay.
I absolutely thank you for that, and I'd like to follow up with Ashley on that comment, and in addition, how you're doing with boundaries, Ashley.
Yeah, those are just like snaps for Alisa, because I totally second that. Yeah, boundaries. I definitely noticed that my boundaries with my kids have definitely loosened over the course of COVID, and some of that I feel like has been, positive in the sense of like we're all going through this like collective trauma together, and so just like I really want to get rid of my like 3-year-old's pacifier like crazy. It just drives me absolutely nuts, because I cannot understand him for the life of me, because he always has the binky in his mouth. But I also recognize that like in the midst of this stressful time is not the time to like take away comfort things. Like whatever we can find comfort in feels really important right now. And so things like, I really want to enact like some of the boundaries about like get out of my bed, get out of my space, but kind of consciously chosen not to. But then I also definitely notice when it's gone a little bit too far and I'm no longer like keeping my shit together. So kind of finding that line of knowing what's, quote unquote, best for them and best for me, and where that kind of balance exists, I think has been a challenge. And one other interesting thing I think is that my husband has been working from home, whereas I have been working from my office during COVID. And so like each day I get to like leave the house and no one else in the house leaves. And I come home at the end of the day, and it's been not that I've ever like stayed at home, but it's just been like an interesting role reversal, if you will, of he is so much more short-tempered than I am. He's so much, like reactive to boundary things going on, because he's not like getting out. And so like I've had to consciously like tell him, I feel like I was doing this for years. Like, I've just got to get out of the house. And now I'm trying to tell him like, just like go somewhere, just like, because I can't even stand you right now. So it's been interesting for me to be able to like watch in more of an observer role during this time.
That's a really good connection. I think that the longer we don't get a break, if you will, or don't get to leave the house in these surroundings, the shorter, at least for me, the shorter my fuse gets. But when I can get away or get my workout in, get to the office, it seems to level set my, my reactiveness. So I think that's a really, really good call out. And Lindsay, how about you?
I think overall, I'm kind of very similar to Ashley. There's been a couple boundary things that I'm just kind of like letting slide. I do have a few, and Ren knows usually as soon as she's done them. I'm really huge on I don't like to be touched when I'm eating, and I cannot tell you how many times my daughter will come up and like I'm just like off me when I'm eating. And then just mostly like bathroom. We have actually been working more on the bathroom, like knock first, maybe don't come in if the door is closed. That is still a challenge. She's still very little, so she always wants to kind of like check in on everything. As to whenever I do hit those boundaries, or I'm feeling that anxiety due to them, I actually am not a yeller. And I feel kind of lucky that somehow, even though I haven't ever yelled, my daughter still kind of fears me in this really weird way. I think it's like more of the healthy respect.
Well done.
Fear's probably the wrong word. Like I can still count down and she's like, okay. She has asked recently, well, what happens when you get to 1? And then, overall, she knows serious mommy means business. So I will get a more serious tone of voice and she usually backs off. But yeah, I think there's been times where normally something would bother me and I've just tried to like let it go a little bit more during this time, because I just know that in that moment, maybe she needed the extra cuddle more than I needed the space. It usually tends to be after like a trying moment or a big change, or like she's really missed her friends. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And I want to talk about boundaries just a bit further. As women, we get asked to do a lot by all kinds of different people from different areas of our lives. For me, I don't necessarily feel like this, but I know for a lot of women, no is a hard word. And so what I'd like to know from you is, do you feel like you're being pulled in a lot of directions from the people in your lives? And if so, have you been able to manage it? Are you able to empower yourself with the word no? And if not, what, talk about that and how it feels when you're feeling like you have to be everything to everybody. And Jessi, I'll start with you on this one.
Sure. So yes, I felt a lot of pressure the first few months. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and we live in a really amazing, tight-knit community. And a lot of my neighbors around me are working mothers. And when we realized that schools would be going virtual, there was a group of 5 of us who put our heads together and thought, okay, what are we going to do? We have 5 first graders. We all live next door to each other. And what are we going to do? Because we can't homeschool. We don't have the means to support this between our full-time jobs and, making sure our kids can read. We ended up getting a pod together, and I thought, I am a stay-at-home mom. They're all full-time employees somewhere else. I feel like it's my duty to bring these kids into my home 5 days a week, 5 first graders. And so I did a ton of legwork in finding a teacher who was certified, who was fully more than capable of coming to my house to teach these kids for 3 hours a day. Being that I have a baby and a 3-year-old, it was not ideal. But again, I'm not working full time. I can't even call like the cable company. I mean, that just makes me crazy with the kids in the house. I can't imagine trying to have a conference call and getting compensated for it. I'd have to pay somebody money at the end of the day. It'd be terrible. So I thought, okay, I'm going to bring these kids into my house. And everybody was on board with it. We got everything set up, and I felt this pressure from one parent in particular. She kept saying, well, it's only going until noon, and I have conference calls at this time and that time. And I felt this little bit of pressure, like, I think she's asking me to watch her child an extra 2 hours. And I just sort of, I put myself in this position by opening my house up. So I was kicking myself a little bit for maybe being too generous. And then I also felt like she was asking too much of me indirectly. Okay, I was just getting that feeling. And at the end of the day, I really wanted to scream and say, "Don't you have a husband?" Because not once did I hear, "Oh, my husband's working," or "My husband might have a break. He works from home, COVID aside anyways. Maybe he could step in and help out." And so I was just getting really frustrated, like, okay, I'm helping you. I'm doing the best I can. Please don't try to squeeze me for more. I'm not capable of it. And all I could hear from her was, "Well, I have this call, I've got to go to this meeting." And I actually talked to Whitney about it, and Whitney sort of gave me the other perspective. We're all panicking right now. We're all trying to find the right thing for our family in our specific situation. So that's kind of how I've been handling it. Long story short, the schooling thing fell apart. I feel like it was kind of a blessing in disguise. And everybody's going their own routes right now. So that answer your question.
That's good. And I think that, just trying to empathize with her was, like she's freaking out doesn't excuse the fact that you were made to feel that way, because you did above and beyond what anybody would to help your group. So having said that, I think that I'd like to call out that I think a lot of times the stay-at-home moms, as working moms, because the rest of us are working moms, they don't get enough credit for the ways that they do step up to help within our communities and with our kids, and thinking about how we collaborate together, being mindful of those things going forward, I think is a great call out, and help encourage them to have boundaries and to be able to say no. So I appreciate you sharing that story. This was not planned beforehand. I'm so glad that you did share that. Having said that, I'd love to hear responses from the other three panelists, how you feel about saying no, being pulled in different directions, and how you respond to that.
Jessi,
Alisa, you want to start?
I was going to say, Jessi, I have to say, I would be on the news if I had to take care of children all day, and my own. And if I were you, I would have been like, hell no, I'm not taking any more hours. And the fact that you open up your home to other children, because I'm a germaphobe and I'm freaked out about like my own kids' germs as well as other children, I don't know, incredible.
Yeah, I will tell you, there's an air purifier involved in plastic shields.
Yeah, I literally am like the mom where the school's like, we don't even want their children here because the mom's crazy. So for me, I do have a problem saying no, and I don't like to say no because I think I can do it the best. And I've learned my lesson with my husband, because I think he does things incorrectly just so that he doesn't have to do them. And not only with my husband, just in general, working for Fortune 500 companies and working with men, you as a woman, if you want to make it to the top, you have to go 10 times harder to show them. So you can't say no. And the majority of my life has been working for large companies. So it's out of my, I don't even have it in me to say, no, I can't do that. I will say that I have an amazing group of friends in my neighborhood, and our group, they are, they're working moms, and they have more kids than me, and they run the shit like I don't know what. Like I a friend that's a physician, and she's baking, and she's making like homemade keto shit. Like I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's just crazy. I can barely, care about my kids playing Barbies. Like she's unreal. And I have another friend that owns her own design business, and she's like running the shit, and she's actually the reason why I'm here today, and where I'm at today, because she pushed me to go forward in this. So, and we talk about it, and I think you have to form a group of close friends that are real, that aren't going to shame you, that you can say, you know, look at this ingrown hair. What do you think? Is this gross? What do you know, you've got to have that closeness of a friend that you tell them, hey, I don't want to do this, but they guide you and they get you through it, and we get it done. And I
love it.
You know, and if I can't get it done, they're the ones I go to, and they help me get it done. So there's not really a no in my life right now, because I try to make it work. It may not be perfect. I mean, my daughter did go to a school event without underwear on times. So
fine.
Okay.
And Lindsay, how about you?
I think overall, I've had a couple moments where I've had to say no. Once again, I try not to feel too guilty about it. I think most people understand. I'm going to just kind of flip it the other way. I think we all, you know, are throwing out hopefully a lot of grace to each other. So when people do say no, we're not taking it as like personally. I've always tried not to take no's from people personally, but especially now more so. So yeah.
Great advice. That's great advice. And Ashley?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that ends up being something I remind myself like quite often. Like I try to put myself in the position of the other person and know that I would not feel, you know, angry or upset at me for saying no if I needed to say that. And I'll often when I do say no to something that's being requested, like the person ends up saying like, oh, of course, like, yeah, I totally understand. I can't even believe that I asked. But it's definitely something that just in general is I need to work on, and I like continue to have to be like super intentional because it's very reflexive for me. Like the immediate answer is yes, unless like there's something glaring that like tells me no. So I have to like, I've tried to implement some like rules for myself where I like don't let myself respond for like 12 hours if I can, if it's like an email or a text or something, because I know that I'll say yes if I don't like give myself a chance to like regulate my nervous system and like turn off the like auto responding yes feature on from my brain. So I've tried to be like much more intentional about it. COVID's like a great excuse for things lately.
Oh, it's a solid excuse. Yeah, so absolutely.
I'm way too busy homeschooling, and I'm not even homeschooling.
Yes, that's right. I'm scared of germs. So, okay. Well, I know we are actually a little past 7:30, but I'd love to close this out with a last question. So hopefully everybody that's in our audience can stay on for this. I want to know, how have you surprised yourself in a good way? Let's share some wins that we can celebrate. And Lindsay, I'd like to start with you on this one.
I tried to think about this one. I guess I kind of talked a little bit about kind of having to do some things on my own during this time. I've been very proud of being able to do that. So much has changed outside of just COVID, but in my life this past half year, it's almost impossible for me whenever I start to think back to it. I'm like, holy cow. But put the other word in there about like how this has how fast everything has moved. I know
Lindsay, can I stop you for a second? Yes. Would you share just a little bit about what you were doing?
Yeah, so
it's
in January, through Latin America with my family. We had spent over a year planning this trip. I had planned my leave for my work. Everything was like smooth sailing. I mean, just that, I was like, I am a beast. I cannot believe I've managed to make this happen. I kind of even set up to whenever I came back, I could have a job back at the museum that I'd love to work at. All these things were like all working out. And then of course, you know, in March, the State Department's like, if you don't come home, you may be locked out of the country forever. Had to come home, lived with my parents for 2 months in Florida. I had a COVID divorce.
It's branded now.
Yeah, came back here. And just kind of just now settling back in. So sometimes I'm very proud for like just kind of like getting through that and like staying pretty darn sane through all of it.
Yeah.
I also think that I was pretty sad about the ending of the trip, but I don't know if I can necessarily process that yet because I have so many other things have come along to have to just like work through and do. So, I mean, overall, it's been a lot of changes, but I'm actually feeling really good where I'm at. I'm feeling that I'm where I belong right now. That sounds really crazy. I moved into this new apartment and it was so crazy. I realized that my neighbor downstairs is actually one of my best friends from childhood. Like we really haven't hung out since like junior high school. And all of a sudden I'm just like,
Very cool.
I was like, this is so exciting. I get to reconnect with someone. I feel like that was just like, you're in the right place, you know, everything's where it should be. So yeah,
Great
I consider
sign.
those successes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. And Jessi.
Okay, you know, some wins I've had is I did pick up carpentry as a hobby at the beginning of COVID, and that's kind of been my safe place. And when my husband's able to, he gives me time to go out and do my thing in the garage. And it's been very therapeutic for me, and I love it. I love, you know, just the end result and building something. I just love it. And I also, another win is, even referring back to this group of moms that I live next to, they're outside in the cul-de-sac right now all having wine. And this time last year, nobody was out there having wine. I'll probably go finish some with them in a little bit. The relationships that we've developed have been, we're all going through this, and it's just been incredible to see, you know, us relying on each other and the friendships growing, and just it's become really tight knit. And that also goes back into the family unit too. We eat dinner together every night. I'm cooking and more, obviously, but I think the family values are kind of really strengthening all over the country, all over the world, because we are forced to be together. So as much as, you know, you ask me 1 minute how I'm doing, it's not a good answer, and the next minute I'm on cloud 9. As much up and down as it is, I think the end result is up here as far as our family life goes.
That's great. Thank you. And Ashley?
I'm feeling like I'm doing some comparison. I feel like I need a hobby, but I think I'm proud of myself for like during this time going back to therapy. I mentioned that earlier, and I think
Great.
it felt like a little bit of a strange time to pursue that and to like reconnect with that, but it's been like a saving grace. And I actually scheduled it, not intentionally, but it's scheduled during like a really inconvenient time for my family. And I think that makes it all the better in some ways, because everybody just sort of has to accommodate it. And that's like a good lesson for us all. So.
Yep. Make time for mama to go take care of herself. I love it. Alisa.
I think the win is that I figured out that I really like my life. That's the win. Like through this COVID, I've realized that, and side note, 2 years ago, it was a shit show going downhill really, really fast. And I've been very humbled and very, very blessed to be where I'm at today. So for me, I have a very good faith base, and I am happy. I've realized that my kids I've kept them alive through this. They're healthy. I actually do, not that I actually do, but we have a good marriage. Like, this is a really good time to decide, is it working? Is it not working? Do you like them? Do you not, you know? So these are all things that I think are wins for me. And it's taught me how to manage my emotions and really dig deep into what is good for me. So those are all wins for me. And I think it's only going to get better, because I think COVID has forced you to really look within yourself, because there's nowhere else to go. You can't go to the restaurant. You can't go have a drink. You can't go on a date. You can't go, I mean, you have to look within yourself and what makes you happy. And I've just realized that I am happy.
What a wonderful answer. And we do have one question from an audience member. Kyla asks, how do we as moms advocate for ourselves as it relates to taking time for ourselves and catering to what we need without apology? And so that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, Kyla. I'd love for each of you to briefly comment on that. Again, how do we as moms advocate for ourselves as it relates to taking time for ourselves and catering to what we need without an apology? So I will, Lindsay, if you want to kick that one off, please.
I think it's just explaining to the people around you and the people that you love just how replenishing it is whenever you take that time for yourself. I think, as I kind of said earlier, whenever with your kids, it's always setting, I think, a good example. I think one of the things also is to just model that it doesn't matter what it is. I always felt like a long time ago, especially when I was an early mom, and it had to be something official. I had to like be taking a class in order to be like making time for myself, or I had to be like bettering myself. Like, it's okay if it's literally just like sitting in my pajamas or like just taking a bath and like locking the door. Like that's all those things are equally as important. So you just have to do it, and then once again, let go of the guilt.
Love it. Alisa? Alisa?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. You know, I think it's something that if you haven't started it prior, you've got to make the time to carve it out, and everyone around you, it's kind of a learning lesson for them that this is my time. You can't go with me. You can't come into this room for an hour, or you know, I need 15 minutes here. So, you know, you have to understand and that you need your time. You know, you were somebody without children, without a husband, without an ex, whatever it is. You were that person before all this, and you were a wonderful person, and you were fun, and you're all that stuff. And so these new things shouldn't change you. So you have to remember that, and with remembering that, then you're like, okay, I want 20 minutes here, or I'm going to spend half a day at the spa, or I'm going to go and have drinks with my friends. Like, you have to make these a priority, because if you don't make yourself a priority, no one else is going to.
Yep. And Jessi. Oh, Jay, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I rely a lot on my husband for my free time, and he hasn't had too much free time to give me. So we've been planning it more. I have to, or I will tell him I am feeling like I'm about at my boiling point. Take the kids and go. And he's been really respectful and responsive, because he knows he's not here most of the time. And so he'll take them on a walk, or I made him take him to his parents' house the other day. And I was in the bed as he grabbed the kids one by one and put them in the car seat. I think I was passed out before the garage door even closed. And he saw it coming. I felt it coming. And if I didn't catch that break, then again, the walls were going to be shaking. So like, just being conscious of, I'm feeling like it's rising. I need to be more aware so that I don't hit it, you know, and be like, oh my gosh, where'd this come from? Or everybody around me is thinking you were fine 1 minute ago. And I'm like, if you ask me for a snack again, literally that's going to trigger me. So just trying to be aware.
Yeah, awareness is good. Self-awareness is really good. And Ashley, how about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the fact that I think historically I've always really tried to like make the other person understand what it is that I need and like the rationale for it. And I think maybe that's one thing that's become easier during this time, is like letting go of the need for them to necessarily understand it or appreciate it. And that I just need to say it as a statement, like, this is what's happening. I've noticed my husband, I mentioned earlier, like he's spending a lot of time at home, he's feeling really exhausted. And so all of our conversations about like what we needed became like competition with each other. Well, you think you need a break, I need a break. And like, it's like trying to one up each other on who's, you know, more burned out and exhausted. And at some point recently, I don't know, I was able to say finally, like, this isn't a competition. Like we both need, like your need for time away doesn't diminish my need for it and vice versa. And so we've got to come up with ways that we, you know, can claim that for ourselves. So we've been trying to do a little bit better job, but I've realized that the other person might not understand it, or they might not even think I need it, but that doesn't mean that it's any less valid. So I've been trying to remind myself of that.
It is so easy to get in that competition, and you don't realize that how ridiculous it is until you step back and think, all right, we're both clearly exhausted. Here's your hour, here's mine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great responses. And Kyla commented, yes, your time away doesn't diminish my time away. Great call out, ladies. And so my last ask would be, because I know we need to wrap this up, we're now 16 minutes past time. If you are interested in people being able to contact you, if you could in the comments, please put the best place to be reached so that they might be able to reach out to you. And Instagram handles, websites, whatever you like. I know Jessi, my little niece Ames, has the funniest dang videos you've ever seen in your life. So I highly recommend following her because she's got the most hilarious videos. So anyway, please do that. And then Stevie, I'm going to hand the mic over to you and say it's been an honor to lead this. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Whitney. I think that this has just been an incredible hour and a half almost here as we've been having discussions, getting really real. I appreciate everybody being vulnerable and sharing a little bit about your stories. I think that for me, just some really key takeaways here that I've been kind of furiously jotting down notes are that, you know, it's about the feelings that we have if we can put a descriptor or a name to them. So I think that for Ashley, guilt is more about sadness, and like really understanding that I think is really crucial. But Lindsay said it, and I think that like for me, it's about you give power to things, and not giving guilt her time is a choice, right? It's making a decision about how you're going to feel about it. And I know, for example, like Ashley and I just last week had a really great discussion about like, hey, we had a miscommunication on like a meeting, and she was like, look, I have these priorities and I have to do this. Like, do you mind if we reschedule? I'm like, it really wasn't a big deal. It was like, great, we'll find somebody else. And it was one of those like understanding level setting moments of like, hey, we've got this, like we'll pivot in the moment and we can be flexible with anything. And I just really think that for me is a really big, I love that, like not giving guilt my time, because I think that takes me to the next piece of overall really understanding that selfishness for women has always been dubbed as this like disgusting word, right? She's so selfish, or selflessness is this amazing thing that people do, right? Like write it on my gravestone, like the most selfless person that I knew. And it's honestly a bad word. It's up there for me with the F word. Like it is like something that I just want to eliminate from our vocabulary, because I think that selfishness, that Alisa's saying, a certain amount of selfishness is important. And I do think that as we redefine what this looks like and understanding like the guilt piece and the feeling of judgment from other people is something that I think a lot of this community as a whole really suffers from. And so when Kyla asks questions about, you know, how do we do this without apology? The apology is a choice, right? It's a decision that we make because we are trying to we're trying to acknowledge and relate with somebody else and acknowledge that it might not be inconvenient for them. And I think that that's the piece for me that we can do that in a way that it's, we don't have to apologize. We can acknowledge, I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you want to spend time with me, or that you would ask me for this, but like, it's just not going to work for me. And there's a lot of ways that we can go about that. I think that using this time as using the silver lining in all of this to reevaluate our values and what's really crucial and important to us. That's what I heard from Jessi, of kind of this like almost guilt of saying like, this has actually been like a really great time for us, right? As a family, like we're sitting down and we're eating dinner together and we're thriving. Yes, it's hard sometimes, but this has actually been really great. I think that there's no need for apology, because in my opinion, the people who can really accept the conditions of where we're at right now, accept it and move forward, instead of competing with those feelings, I think are the ones that are going to come out on the other side of this probably more successful. So I'm just so grateful for all of you guys for being here tonight, for everybody who has been in on the discussion, for everybody who will listen to this later. We're going to post this on YouTube and on Instagram TV for future viewing. And I just am really grateful for Whitney and for Ashley for just starting this conversation rolling. As a part of the series in the future, I'll send out a survey link after this. If you could just take, it'll be 3 questions of things you want to hear about as we kind of build this incredible community of moms, and how we want to continue the dialogue, things you would want to see differently from this group. A few just upcoming things I thought I would share about from WISE as we're continuing to move forward. We are celebrating our 1-year anniversary tomorrow, which is incredible. We've pivoted during the pandemic. There's been a lot of insanity happening. We've done things, you want to talk about things that I didn't know. I wrote about this in the newsletter. We donated over 1 million products to frontlines workers nationally. Didn't see that coming. Didn't know that that was a thing that we were going to do as WISE. But we're showing up for women in ways that we just didn't even realize, being able to pivot from in-person to being a digital community. So we've had people from all over the world actually join tonight. We had people join tonight from the UK. We had people join from Los Angeles, Canada, and beyond. So I just am really grateful for you to talk about silver linings. I think that this is one of those opportunities that we are all connected in ways that maybe we previously didn't realize. Within the month of September, you're going to see incredible content coming. One is going to be from Shelley Boggs. She's a mindfulness and certified functional medicine coach. And she's going to be talking a lot about stress less challenge. So if you want 30 days of incredible, just take 30 seconds a day to take content, spend 30 minutes a day de-stressing. That's something that I think just for this group, trying to carve out that time in your day, 30 minutes. Just try and do it. Like I said, sit in your closet, go outside, go for a drive. I go in my car all the time. I literally go nowhere and just sit in my car and listen to music. And I think it's just really crucial for us to create that space for us. So more to come from this, but thank you so much again for joining us. Really appreciate it. And everybody have a wonderful evening. I hope you take this last bit of time to just really try to plan out and carve out some time that you can really invest in yourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stevie. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.